Okay, here is our Heartland Pergolas show display crate. And all you need is a drill to start and an ink pen. Pull up these little levers and out pops. What's that, Steve? Your driver bit.
Yeah, 5/8.
All right.
3/8.
3/8. That is the only bit you'll need to put together the whole pergola. Everything else is inside the crate. And it also happens that this is the size bit you need to remove the bolts for the pergola. So for demonstration purposes, we don't have all 6 of them in, but that's how you'll take all those parts out. And unpacking the crate, we're just going to go item by item. Let me get a shot in here real quick. We've got Mr. Clean Magic erasers, some accessory parts in case something gets lost, but you won't need those in case you lose something. A box full of brochures, and handy dandy Mr. Clean Magic erasers and paper towels should you need to scuff something or clean something up. We've also got extra Purlin end caps Steve's holding there. There's plenty of extra ones. These have a tendency to get broken going in and out of the pergola for display, so you'll be able to set it up a few times without needing extras. A Vutainer full of extra screws, good to need them. And then for the show, we found it's very effective to demonstrate the internal components of the pergola, and so we have a post mount to show potential customers what the reinforcement pieces are. And same goes for the beam and 2x6 and 2x8. Got our little logo on them. People tend to get wowed by that. You got the 2x8. Also shows customers our tan color. That last little thing Steve had there is a driver extension, which you'll need to put together the pergola. Now, we put one of these in there. You're probably going to want 2 of them, and it's going to be faster if you got guys with 2 drills. But that's what's in the crate for the display purposes. Why don't you guys just unpack the crate so they can see how it works. So you got 4 posts. And we use these blankets to protect everything, along with these foam cutouts. So you can see that the 4 posts went in there first. So rather than set everything up right now, let's just show them what's in the rest of the crate and how it goes there, so they can put it back together once they tear it all apart. Just pull them out and set them right next to the crate. You've got 2 beam assemblies. Oh, let's do the beam assemblies first. You got a beam assembly number 1. Those will go on top of the posts. Beam assembly 2. And in here you've got the rest of the rafters and purlins in the center. So there's 2 rafters. Those go on top of the beams. Two more rafters. Purlin holders. Let's go on top of the rafters. And then the purlins. So how many purlins are there, Steve?
23.
Okay, so that's all that's in the crate. All that's left is just these little stopper pieces, so when it travels down the road it doesn't bang into things. So that's all. Okay, so we have the column bases in place, and the measurement from the outside of one column base to the outside of the other column base is 85 5/8 inches. And so that everybody remembers that, I wrote it over here on the crate. Column bases 85 5/8 inch OTO stands for out to out. It's important not to measure the actual column itself because the base is a little wider than the actual column. So if you square this column up, or the columns up at 85 5/8, you will be ready to put your beams on. So here we go. Here's a set of beams, and let's note one thing. There's a set of holes in these beams. They're all labeled with letters. Those go towards the outside, so towards the aisle or towards the back of the booth for setup purposes. And these beams are designed just to set right on top. They should just slip fit into place. There's one. There's two. Okay. So that's the first beam. Second beam, pretty much the same thing. Up the ladder. There. Okay, as long as you guys didn't bump around the bases, which I don't think you did, pergola is ready for rafters. Okay, what we have here is the pergola roof. In actual practice, this will be on the columns that we just set up. For purposes of this video, it's a little easier to show assembling it on the ground. So we're assuming that this is up on columns. All of this work from here on will be done with ladders. So be careful with ladders, and you want to get a pocket full of screws, and you set each one of your beams up on top. Excuse me, each one of your rafters up on top of the beam. So this part right here, I've got a little screw and a corresponding hole put into the rafter and the beam, and they're each labeled A through D, A and B. So Steve will stand that up there. They just pop right into the hole. A, B, C, and D. Go ahead and stand those all up, guys. And we put these little detents in just so it always goes up the exact same. You have to wiggle them around a little bit. Okay, so from here you'll screw down all the rafters. There's a big hole in each one of those. So go for it, just rattle these off. He's got the extension on the bit. And there we go. Now certainly one guy can do this, but it is a little faster when you have a helper. Looks like C is a little trickier to pop in, but I think we got it. Okay, so once all those go in, we have what we call these little Purlin holders, which are the vinyl rectangles here that have the slots cut in them. Those sit on top of the rafter we just screwed in, so they cover up that big hole we put on there, and those are numbered. So we have 1 goes to 1. And Chris, why don't you get the rest of them going there? 2 to 2, 3 to 3, and 4 to 4. And then each one of these purlin holders has 2 little screws in it. Probably don't need this really long extension, but it works. So once these are all in, you are ready to slide your purlins in through those holders, and all the holes should be lined up perfectly and should go in relatively simply. So here we are sliding the purlins in, the purlin holders, and they just slide through one at a time. Chris is measuring what we call the purlin stick out. And that is a technical term I learned from an engineer. How far do those purlins stick out?
8 inches to the end of the purlin.
Okay. I like to measure to the end of the cap.
9 inches
So,
to the end of the cap.
sorry, Chris, but we wrote we wrote that on the box too, just in case. It says purlin stick out 9 inches to cap. So if you get it 9 inches to the cap, they're all lined up. Should work out really nicely, and will look good. You may want to have somebody actually on the show floor at the end of it, just kind of run their eye down it and make sure it looks perfect. Because otherwise some engineer will walk by and say, hey, how come that one sticks out? But we don't put any screws in these for the show. In actuality, in the field you certainly would do that so they don't move, but for the show there's no winds in there, so it should be good to go. Okay, here's how the crate goes back together. So beams first. So those rafters kind of get slid. Right next to the beams, and then inside that. Uh-oh. Disaster averted. So it's fairly snug. So all the purlins kind of get stacked on top of that. so it all fits fairly snug. Up, then grab the accessories. This is kind of tucking that in. Can you help me throw in the rest of that stuff, Chris? Cool. Okay, let's put the lid on it. And then I have the rest of this stuff. I have the bit and the screws. So these are all pre-drilled, so shouldn't be a problem. Just run those in, and when you're all done, the bit goes in the handy dandy storage compartment, and we're done. Thanks, guys.